Hey, what's up, feckers? Now, as promised, what are the top 10 melee weapons in Warframe right now? When all else fails and you find yourself face to face with your wide-eyed enemies, what weapons do you choose that will make cutting them down so much easier? And of course, put a big diddly silly smile on your feckin' face. Of course, it's just the Sheev from 1 to 10. At 9 is the Sheev, at 8 is the Sheev, at 7 is the Sheev, and so on. That's the video. Thanks for watching. Can you imagine? Okay, so if you've played Warframe long enough, then you're probably going to know what the so-called top 10 melee weapons are, or you'll have a general idea of which ones are absolutely awesome. So the usual quick disclaimer before I start the video. I asked you guys to give me a list of your top 10 melee weapons, so that's what this is, your list made by you guys, but of course edited by a feckin' Irish potato. Now, the big difference with this video and the two previous videos before it is that I really struggled to get an average top 10 melee weapons from the comment sections of those videos, and it's made me realise just how diverse our melee weapons are. Out of all of our weapon categories, this is the one that gives us so many options and has so many amazing weapons for us to choose from. Definitely more than 10 top weapons in that category. This list is of course in no real order. Number 1 is not any better than number 10, they're all pretty much in the same tier, and if your favourite weapon isn't named, then that doesn't mean it's a bad weapon, it just means that it didn't get mentioned enough by the guys in my comment section, and it's still an incredible weapon. So let's start the video, shall we? In at number 10 is a favourite among a lot of you guys, and one that can dish out a serious amount of damage. It is of course the Talos Bolt Lesion. It's a mastery rank 7 slash based polearm that has its very own innate buff mechanic that activates when you deal a status effect on an enemy. This buff will give you a 15% attack speed buff for 6 seconds, as well as a 100% bonus of toxin damage for 6 seconds as well. Now this toxin damage is also affected by mods which you have equipped on your weapon, which allows you for a really nice damage dealing polearm. And because the Lesion has a really high base status chance, you could reach that 100% status chance with 4 dual stat mods if you wanted to, so more or less you could have a constant uptime on that damage and that speed buff that it has built into it. And when you go ahead and mod the weapon for a combination of slash and a high enough status chance, it becomes an absolute beast and one that fully deserves to have its name in this list. If anything, it's a seriously underestimated weapon that's not really used by enough of the player base. Once you stick on body count and weeping wounds, you can just step back and admire the absolute carnage that you have just created. If you haven't got one, then you should definitely grab one and try it out for yourself. Next up is a huge favourite of mine. In fact, it's my favourite melee weapon in the game right now, so I am really delighted that so many of you guys love wielding it and actually felt that you could mention it enough to get it on this list. It is of course Talos butt ugly Acanpump, and yes, I said it's butt ugly, but it is my favourite weapon, unless you've got Oberon's skin on it, in which case then it looks absolutely amazing. So the Acanpump is a mastery rank 3 sword and shield that can absorb elemental damage and then add that damage to your attacks. So it's really good at blocking damage, but it's really good at dealing damage as well. And most of the damage that it deals is of course slash based. It's got a high critical hit chance, which makes the Berserker viable, which means you can attack a lot faster, and when you combine it with Final Harbinger stance, you can throw out a solid amount of DPS. And also because it's got its very own mod in electromagnetic shielding, you can stick that on and make it a really nice weapon to run with on missions where you want to help mitigate damage for your squad mates. Like if you want to run with a Terminator Nyx setup, then it is absolutely amazing. Now I definitely couldn't recommend the Acanpump enough, it is such a good weapon. If you haven't got one, then get one and try it out for yourself and let me know what you think of it. But maybe I'm a little bit biased because like I said, it's my favourite weapon. The next weapon on our list is one that can be a huge eyesore when someone in your squad is running with it, simply because of all of the damn particles that it leaves behind. But you can't deny how damn effective this weapon is. It is of course the Talos Bolt, or even better, a Talos Bolt that's combined with a Relentless combination mod, or Spin to Win Tonfa that deals guaranteed slash procs with slide attacks. So the slide attacks from the Talos Bolt give out a wave of energy which deals damage to all enemies in a radius up to as far as 24 meters away once you've got Prime Breach equipped, which is absolutely nuts. And with the right mods, the damage of those slash procs can melt enemies in seconds. Add a blinding Warframe into the mix to increase that damage and forget about it. There was no enemy there to begin with. What enemy? All that's left is a pair of smouldering boots. And because the new Relentless Combination mod increases your combo multiplier with slash procs, it means that the Talos Bolt is a bit of a demon once you get going with it. Now the Talos Bolt is also a syndicate weapon that you can buy from Arbiters of Hexes once you've got the required standing, and of course you meet the required rank in order to buy it. You might find it enjoyable if you enjoy the sliding attacks and sliding around like a feckin' pleb, and of course burning the eyes out of your squad mates' heads because of all of those particles. If you like that, then go ahead and get one. Oh, and it's also a Mastery rank 8 weapon, so you need to be that rank as well. Next on the list is a weapon that can completely whip your enemies into a frenzy, while at the same time whipping them into several feckin' pieces. It is of course the Atarax, our favourite Grineer torture device, which is a Mastery rank 2 weapon that deals high slash damage, has a 25% base crit chance and a 20% status chance, as well as a pretty long reach, so you can mod it for a mix of crit and status and watch as it annihilates absolutely everything in front of you. Or more importantly, you could stick on Maiming Strike on there, which can destroy enemies in no time at all, because it has a really nice base crit multiplier as well, which adds to that insane damage output. The Atarax is simply an amazing weapon, definitely worth checking out, like a lot of the weapons on this list. So if you don't have one, then what are you waiting for? Get your hands on one and see. It is incredibly good if you've got a Radial Blind Excalibur. Just watch it melt everything. Our next hack and slash weapon is less hack and slash and more wham bam big ass slam. Can't believe I just said that. This is the Jatkatag, our jet powered big feckin' hammer, and one that deals high amounts of damage but also has a nice mix of status chance and crit chance in there as well. Not to mention that for maximum fun factor, you can slam the ground and enemies will ragdoll all over the place. It's got some serious crowd control, this weapon. But it's when you combine the Jatkatag with its exclusive mod Vulcan Blitz that the real fun starts. So Vulcan Blitz causes enemies to explode once you kill them with the Jatkatag. This can lead to a lot of chain explosions and a lot of dead bodies lying at the feet of your Warframe, or I guess disintegrated either. And the Jatkatag can also stagger enemies on every hit, and when you combine that with the slam, it makes them a really good crowd control weapon. The Jatkatag is a Mastery rank 5 weapon that is honestly one of the most fun weapons in the game right now. Get to your dojo and get building this thing if you haven't already, because it is totally worth your while. The next weapon on the list is not going to surprise any of you. It's big, you hold it with 2 hands, and you can swing it around for maximum damage. It is of course Stalker's big old 2-handed sword, War. I don't know what you guys were thinking of, dirty-minded feckers. War is a Mastery rank 10 sword that looks amazing, but to build it you need Stalker to drop the goddamn blueprint first, so you have to pray to Orin Jesus. You will also need the broken war sword to build it as well, so it's an easy one to build, but not really. This badass sword comes with a high base crit chance, high base status chance, and deals high amounts of impact damage, which makes it ideal against corpus. It's got a decent reach, and at one time this was simply the hardest hitting weapon that we had in Warframe. And the combination of high crit and status as well allowed us to deal some serious damage. And right now it is still one of the top weapons that we have, but there are other weapons that are definitely in the same league as it. This is kind of what I meant earlier. Melee weapons give us so many different options for endgame, depending on what build we're going to run with or what kind of different setup we're running with. I wish primary and secondary weapons gave us this amount of options with regards choosing weapons without the aid of Riven mods to help them out, but it is what it is. Next on the list is a relatively new weapon to the game that arrived with the latest Prime access. It is of course the Vanka Crane, a weapon that brings out the Logan or X23 in all of us. These are a set of slash based claws. You can see a trend here, right? Slash based weapons reign supreme in Warframe. The Vanka Prime have a high crit chance, decent crit multiplier and a decent status chance, but it's their ability to build the combo counter that makes them so feckin' good. Expect to be dealing very large numbers after just a few hits, because the Vanka Prime has a larger combo multiplier than any other weapon, which means you can build it up a lot faster. And when combined with Blood Rush and Body Count or Drifting Contact, The Vanka Crane are easily one of the best weapons in the game right now if you've been lucky enough to get the parts to actually build it. Their only real downside is that they have pretty crappy range and you need to be up close and personal, and if you like getting up close and personal then you may as well feel like a badass while doing it, right, with a set of claws. The next weapon on the list at one stage in the game was also the single best melee weapon that we had. It also looks absolutely amazing. It is of course the Acanpump. A weapon that apparently predates the fall of the Orokin Empire, and it's a slash based weapon that can shred its way through absolutely any enemy. It deals the highest base damage of all single-handed weapons, and because of its high base crit chance it can be modded for Blood Rush and have you getting constant critical hits and have you dealing some serious damage output as you dance your way through the masses of enemies in your way. But first you're going to need to build it and get your hands on all of its parts, and that's a big if you can get the hilt for it to drop, because it can be a bit of a pain in the arse, so pray to Orin Jesus that you can get all of those parts in order to build this incredible weapon. For the next place on the list, it was a throw up between two weapons, two incredibly good weapons, but I can only choose one because I got to keep the list down to 10 weapons. It was between the Talos Bolt and the Vanka Sidon, so I decided to add the Vanka Sidon simply because it brings a little bit extra to the table. The Vanka Sidon is a syndicate melee weapon that's mastery rank 8 that comes with its very own innate blinding mechanic that allows you to radial blind enemies and open them up to finishers. It also has a 50% chance to resist a knockdown, which at higher levels is incredibly useful. And if you go ahead and choose to add the mod Guardian Derision into your build, then its taunt will allow you to build up your weapon's blind even faster when you're in a squad. The way this blind works is the Vanka Sidon builds up 15 charges by blocking incoming damage, which when released will blind enemies in a radius around you, but the weapon itself also deals a serious amount of damage, not to mention it has a solid status chance as well as a high amount of puncture damage, so it's great against armoured targets. Reach mods will also increase the range of your weapon's blind, and I know the Talos Bolt and several other weapons could have been in this list in absolutely any of these spots, but like I said, I have to keep the list down to 10 weapons or it's not really going to be a top 10, is it? Also remember, none of these weapons are in any real order. Number 10 is just as good as number 1 with the right build or with the right person using it. Which of course leaves us to the number 1 spot, which I think a lot of us will somewhat agree that right now the Gallatin Crane is probably the hardest hitting beast in the game at the minute. It's a mastery rank 13 weapon that has the highest base damage of all melee weapons in the game right now. It's got a 20% crit and status chance and has the fastest attack speed of all of our heavy blade weapons in the game as well. So not only does this thing hit incredibly hard, but it also hits fast to boot. Add in primed reach with Blood Rush or drifting contact and the Gallatin Crane will straight up kill anything on the star chart without even breaking a sweat. It's another slash based weapon as well, so you can split body parts in half like every other slash based weapon on this list, making it ideal for good old Bony Hole himself, Necros. The Gallatin Crane is the greatest of our great swords apparently, but a lot of the weapons on this list are right up there with it or just as good at it, or even some of you guys might think are actually better than the Gallatin Crane if they're modded correctly. Because there is definitely a bit of an argument in the community that certain weapons can outperform the Gallatin Crane with the right setup, like the Atarax or the Acanpump, but you guys can of course discuss that in the comment section below this video. Also let me know in the comment section as well how many you got right between 1 and 10, how many of the weapons did you see as being in the top 10. Remember, like I also said, this list is not in any real order. I added numbers into the video simply so as I could break up the editing with each weapon and make it a little bit prettier at the same time. Now I had to keep the list down to 10 weapons, so I was forced to leave out a lot of incredible weapons from this list. So these are the weapons that I felt deserved an honourable mention. Of course there are other weapons that belong here as well, but my graphic that you're seeing on the screen right now only holds this amount of names, so I couldn't fit any more on. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Sorry it took so long to release. I know I've been getting a lot of requests for this video over the last week. Editing these types of videos takes a little bit longer than my normal ones do, so here it is. Hopefully you guys are happy now. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, or don't if you didn't. Subscribe for more Warframe, and as always, thanks very much for watching.